I'm Mike Toller.
And I'm Brett Beater.
And this is Don't Panic, McHenry County. And we're here with Carolyn Schofield, who's running for the primaries in the House of Representatives 66th District on the Republican side. Well, thanks for coming in. And with this the third time, or depending upon when we release the recording, that you've been on our show, and we greatly appreciate that. So before we start with our questions, is there anything that you'd like to let people know about your candidacy and why you've decided to run for this spot?
Yeah, give us the elevator speech.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on again. Always a pleasure. I am running for state representative because I feel that the people of the 66th district need effective representation, and we have not had that, honestly. I am currently on the McHenry County Board. I am on the executive board for the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. I was previously on the Crystal Lake City Council. So I understand the importance of working with our local elected officials, and how we, in order to bring the community down to Springfield, we need to have that direct relationship. And right now we have a representative who, frankly, is a bridge burner and does not want to work with our local elected officials, does not want to work with his constituents and bring their values and their needs to Springfield. So that's really why I've stepped up, and I think I have those community relationships. I am very actively involved within my community. I have been on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I've volunteered for youth organizations. I'm active in the school systems. I did a foster care Second Bridge. I work with that organization, which is helps the foster care system, and we stuffed 4,000 bags for foster care children last year. So really have an understanding of a lot of diverse areas. I've done work with the Human Trafficking Coalition. So understand the needs of the community and a variety of topics, and really want to bring those relationships and those experiences and that passion for the community down to Springfield.
Awesome. So we've got a list of questions here. You've not seen them beforehand. We'll actually have your opponent that'll come in and we'll ask the same questions, and he hasn't seen them beforehand. I just want to give you a little bit of a reminder. This is about you and your positions. We're not here to try and debate somebody that isn't here. We're not here to mudsling. This is all about you. All right. Go ahead, Brett. You got the first one.
How do you feel about the fair tax?
I actually do not support the fair tax. I think that we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. I think there are areas within our expenses that we can take a close look at, really looking at areas and those that, how do I want to say it, that are in the system right now and making sure they qualify for some of the services. I mean, Medicaid is one of the examples of, are people still really qualified for that are utilizing that system, or has their situation changed where they no longer would qualify for those services yet are still taking advantage of those services? And I think that number is pretty significant in the potential of money that can be saved in an area like that. There's other areas that are similar to that example, but really looking at the spending side and getting a clear handle on that before introducing any new revenues.
I think that's a pretty fair answer there.
Pretty straightforward.
Fair answer to fair tax. So on to question two. What are your thoughts on ranked choice voting for all state and federal elections? And to kind of go along with that, computer-drawn districts instead of...
Yes, I am absolutely a supporter of fair maps, and we were actually talking about the configuration of this district alone, and how and when people say, where's your district, and you have to explain, well, there's this little nook over here, there's this little lake over here, and it's really hard to actually represent people when they don't even know who their representative is. And when you're drawing districts for individuals, it's never good for anybody. So I think that doing computer-drawn maps, I was just having this discussion with my husband of why can't they, in this technology that we have, why can't they just make these nice little lines and draw these maps? And that absolutely is the way to go. It takes any political aspect out of it, and I think that's what should be done.
I mean, I understand why some of the lines are the way they are because they're based on roads and rivers or streams or whatever. I mean, I get that, but it's like the ones like, can't remember which district that is in Chicago. It's like a huge chunk, and it goes up one road, like 2 miles, and then it's a big chunk again.
Right.
It's like, what? Why?
Because there was someone that lived over here that.
Right. I mean, I know what they did it for, but they would get rid of all that.
Yeah.
So it's that I think would be a better one.
There's an excellent video on that from a YouTuber called CGP Gray. I'll put the link in this video and I'll send it to you on Facebook about how you can literally do this fairly by dividing, looking at an area and drawing the shortest line to divide the population in half, and keep doing that until you get down to the number of representative that you need.
Yeah.
And so that's something. And so the other part of that was that ranked choice voting. Are you familiar with ranked choice?
I'm not that familiar with that.
Okay. Do you want a little bit of a primer on that?
Please.
Okay. So ranked choice voting is, instead of just voting for one person, you've let's say we've got 4 people running, and we've got A, B, C, and D, and you get 4 votes that you get to rank. I want B as 1, C as 2, and I don't like really any of the other candidates, so I'm not going to use my other 2 votes. So once everything's totaled up, you look at the lowest candidate. Nobody's gotten to 51%. So as opposed to right now, where whoever has the highest, whether or not they get 50%, the majority, if nobody's reached 51% when everything's totaled up, those that with the lowest vote, their votes are moved to their second choice.
Okay.
So, and then that keeps happening until somebody gets the majority.
Okay.
Winding up with the idea being that we wind up with somebody that more people can agree on.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, and I would love to familiarize myself more with that. It sounds like a fair.
I'll send you a video.
Yeah,
we already have a video.
Because yes, I'm a supporter of any way where the people's votes can be heard, and I think that's a good solution to, people who their candidate drops off, they can actually still get somebody in office.
Well, I think it fixes 2 problems really. One, it helps people go out and vote because there's actually, they kind of counts more, like, okay, so I've been heard, and this is how it goes. But it also saves a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to have, if you wanted to do it, you could just do it for like a presidential election. Like, there's 20 people running, here you go. But I can see it being brought down into a primary, so instead of like, the one guy that, like, let's just use Iowa that just happened for the Democrats. You got 2 people at 26%.
Well,
flip a coin to win.
The Iowa caucuses are actually very similar in their restructure to a ranked choice idea, because those that are found not viable, their delegates can then reorganize into other groups after the first round of vote. So that's very similar to a ranked choice voting. But they also they
don't go to like the 51% thing. It's similar to a ranked choice setup.
Well, I'll send you over a video on that, so the next time we ask you, you can have an opinion.
Yeah, anything to encourage people to get out and vote and actually have their vote count. I support that.
The other big thing that a lot of people think it'll do is allow a much better third party involvement, because you can vote for that third party and still hedge your bet kind of with, okay, so I don't like Jimbo at all. I really like Carolyn, but I'm more tolerant. Like, she's running as a libertarian, so I know there's a good chance that she may not win. So I'm just going to vote for her first, and then this other guy second. Right. Because I really don't like this person. Yeah. So it gives you that ability to do that.
Yeah, definitely open to that idea for sure.
All right, so on to question 3. Property taxes in Illinois are a hot topic. Mm-hmm. What, if anything, would you do to address the situation?
Well, currently, I have been doing, at the county, we permanently reduced our tax levy by 10%, so I supported that. Really, at the state level, they don't have that direct impact so much as they do at the local level. So again, a big portion of that, which I had said in the beginning, is the relationships with our local elected officials and understanding their needs. One of the things that we have needed as a county was that potential, and it could benefit really any form of government, when you do that 3-year look back, and if you can reduce taxes and then you have to look back and you take that permanent reduction, or, and you can't go back, or if there was a way to continue to encourage people to take those reductions, but then wouldn't permanently reduce that, I think that's why people hesitate to utilize that as a tool, is because the legislation doesn't allow for them to, if needed in the future, to ever go back. So really working with our local elected officials and understanding their needs and carrying any limiting legislation that can help people reduce that. The property taxes would be one of my main focuses. But on there is, obviously property taxes, school funding is, in the school funding formula is the biggest portion of that property tax. So finding ways to, again, allow local control, a little bit of flexibility in how they can reduce things like unfunded mandates and actually allow them to focus on their students and their schools themselves, rather than putting unfunded mandates, standardized testing, easing up on some of those things that can reduce the burden that are on those school districts, and then redoing the school funding formula and making it less reliant on property taxes would be one of the biggest things. I don't have that exact solution, but is one that I definitely think we need to figure out, find one that's equitable across the state, as well as reduces the reliance on taxes. But in really any unfunded mandates across the board, one example that I would like to give is on the CAT fees that was just implemented at the state level. I mean, that was then brought, there seems to be this, and you may be aware of, even at the county board, some people were calling it a tax, some people were calling it a fee. Either way, it was something that was mandated to the county because cats are now required to be registered within all counties, and the county is required to have that responsibility. The dog database that we have for that, it costs, I think, about $100,000 a year. So we offset that by dog fees when they get vaccinated. So what we were implementing was a similar type of fee. And it was a fee, not a tax. A tax would be something that's utilized for the entire population to be benefited from, where a fee is that specific to the users that fee is going to be used for. And this is specifically used for cats. So it was something that was, if we didn't implement this fee, then it would have been a tax, and it would have been an unfunded mandate from the state. So, really to reduce those unnecessary unfunded mandates and allow and focus on efficiencies and shared services, and really start reducing those overall costs on every layer of government that's there. And again, working with the local municipalities and the local units of government to understand what they need to be able to run more efficiently and actually save money. Because sometimes legislation actually does limit them in their abilities, and it's costing us more in the end.
That's really interesting to find out that was that cat thing came from the state. I did, in everything that I saw put out, it was just that the county decided to do this.
No.
That there was no mention of the state requirement.
It was a new law that was enacted that included cats had to be vaccinated and registered. So that was why we implemented that. That's where.
Was it kind of like a piggyback on the dog one that they had? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, and I'm not sure exactly why. I don't really know why that decision. It was pretty. It was pretty well received, I guess, at the state level, but I'm not really sure why it was driven from there. And it was all cats. It was, there's been that misconception that it was just feral cats, but it's not. It's all cats. So any cat that's brought into a veterinarian has to be vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know people that sometimes get the ferals and have them neutered or whatever and put it back out there. But, I mean...
Yeah, and it has to be those... It included that, too. So I'm assuming it was to prevent any sort of rabies from spreading in the feral cat community. But it wasn't specific to feral cats. It was for all cats. Yeah. So we didn't... we couldn't...
Right.
Yeah, you can't... Yeah, once you start splitting hairs like that, it's... Yeah.
Splitting cat hairs? Is it my shot or your shot?
Your turn.
All right. I lost track. I was too busy listening. A lot of people think the partisan divide in this country is wider than ever, and we've seen a similar divide in the state and county. How will you overcome that divide if you are elected to serve the people?
And I completely agree with your statement. I have that same feeling. And I've been very outspoken about this, that I personally have a problem with that divide as well. I think nothing positive comes about with divide. I have always collaborated with individuals, regardless of party and regardless of even their stance on issues. I am able to talk with anybody. I appreciate both sides of an issue. I always want to be educated on issues. So that's what I'm campaigning on, is I will reach across the aisle. I will collaborate with other individuals, and I will find consensus to actually move forward legislation and issues that are within the best interest of the district that I represent. I have no problem with that. I see people as people. I respect everybody's opinion. I may not always agree with it, and that's fine. And they don't always need to agree with my opinion either, and that's fine. But can we work together to get things done? Absolutely. And it's really on respect. I feel like we've lost that sense of respect for one another, and I know this is completely off topic, but I do think it kind of ties into social media. That it's very easy to sit in front of a screen and criticize somebody when you don't have to look them in the eye to do it. And I feel like social media has dehumanized people, and people find, and I experience it all the time. I mean, there are people I've never met that have an opinion of me, tell me what I think, and I've never had a conversation with them. Make up stories about, where I've been or what I've done or, what I've said. And these are people I've never seen, but but they can do it because they just need to type it on a screen. And it really takes, I'm a person, and I always look at an individual, even if they're in front of a screen, I view them as a person, and I respect them as such. And I think that social media has just allowed a dehumanization of individuals, and that has lost that respect then and created that divide. That's my personal take on it.
I won't disagree with you, but I will add that the other portion of it is that social media is designed to keep you on it. And how do you keep people using it? By seeing things that they like. So the algorithms build a bubble of similar ideas around you. So you sit on that social media and then you think everybody agrees with you because that's all you see.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
So
and I'm fine with people not agreeing with me. I mean, I encourage people to pick up the phone and call me, and I can have that conversation. I'm not afraid of having that conversation. I'm not afraid of building relationships with people that I have different opinions with. And that's what we need, is people that can approach things in that way and find the common ground and actually work together to get things done.
So what I'm hearing is pretty much is you would actually be a representative.
Yes, I do like to say that I want to put the represent back in representative.
Right. So if you
that
felt,
sounds like a slogan to me right there.
like if you felt way X about something, but say 90% of the people coming at you felt the exact opposite, you would actually go up there and vote that exact opposite way because that's what they're telling you to do.
And that is exactly, and I say that all the time, that it is not about my opinion, it is about the opinion of the people that I represent. And I think it's really important to gauge that as well, to have community engagement surveys, get that feedback, really talk to people and find out what it is they're interested in. And that's why I think that connection with the local officials is important, because who better knows the pulse on their community than those that are leading those individuals.
Right there, yeah.
So really having those individual communities and those relationships, which I do, I am supported by the majority of presidents and mayors, and it's because I have those relationships and I want to understand their communities so I can actually represent them at that next level.
All right. And that's it. If nothing else, the fact that you've been on our show, and neither of us are Republicans, I think speaks to.
And I respect your opinions, though.
All right, next one.
Sure.
What, in your opinion, is the largest obstacle the state must overcome right now, and how will you work to address it?
Well, there's two things. One, the state as a whole. I mean, obviously, it's our financial position and our pensions. I mean, the growing pensions. And that's another thing. I think the pensions have become a problem because people aren't sitting at the table and having those discussions. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and a lot of them people agree on, but they just haven't had that discussion at the table. I have met with teachers unions. I've met with, other unions as well to understand their side of the story. But the one thing that they always ask is, will you allow us to be at the table? Well, of course I'll allow you to be at the table. I mean, if you're affected by it, you absolutely should be at that table. But I think there's even just such divide on who should be at the table, who should be having these discussions, that there's nothing being done. So pensions definitely needs to be addressed. If we would have started addressing this issue, 10 years ago, we would have a solution by now and be, rather than adding to it, we'd actually...
Or 25 years ago when it all started, we wouldn't have had this problem.
Right. But I feel like a lot, especially this question, I ran 4 years ago, and this was the same question with the same answer 4 years ago, and we're at the same spot. So we just really need to start having those discussions. We need to start talking about we need to pay down our debt obligations. We need to get over the fact that we can't have a constitutional amendment to change the fact that we have these obligations. We need to pay. I mean, we need to get over, yes, we have to pay. We're in this position, and we need to pay those pensions. But there are things we can do moving forward, though. We can have like a tier 3 system with a 401k style benefit. We can change moving forward, but we need to get over the fact of we have these obligations and we need to be committed to paying those down, and we need to focus on that. The other side of that, that's the state problem as a whole, but I think it also goes back to just that divisive nature. And right now, the state of Illinois is being controlled by a supermajority party, of which I'm not part of, and I realize I wouldn't be part of, but having that divide and still allowing, because you have that supermajority, is a problem within the state. And we've seen it with some legislation that has gotten passed. It's not great legislation. I mean, it's just really not. And I don't know if you have cannabis on there, but that was really one that are you guys going to talk about later?
No.
Okay. But I will talk about it now, because that's an example of really having that supermajority and focusing on only how can we raise taxes or how can we get more money. So let's pass this recreational cannabis bill. And I don't care how people feel. Well, I do care, but it doesn't matter how you feel on should it be legalized or should it not. What matters, though, is it was a poorly written bill that got passed through because the supermajority said we can pass it. We don't need. They did get 3 Republicans, but they didn't need them. And the reason why it was so poorly written is public safety was not addressed. There is no way for our law enforcement to be out in the field and identify if someone is under the influence of recreational cannabis. And so now we have people driving, and yet our law enforcement doesn't have a way of doing a sobriety test or any kind of breathalyzer like they do with alcohol. And we're really putting our public at risk. In states that have legalized this, their traffic accidents have increased by 6% in the first year alone. And I sit on the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, and we just last month had approved IDOT safety standards and made the goal of a 20% decrease in traffic incidents. And how do we accomplish a goal like that when we know that statistics show that our incidents are going to actually go up 6%? So now we're just set ourselves up for failure by allowing this. And we really needed to address those public safety concerns. I mean, our state's attorney was one of the leads down in the state stating those concerns, and his opposition to this bill because of his concerns for public safety. And as one of the biggest employers in McHenry County, of what it does to the workforce and how we regulate it within our workforce was also something that not only did we struggle with, but other employers struggled with as well. And I think just getting that information and education out to the employees is a challenge. So it's kind of, sorry, I rolled into a whole other subject on you, but it's just showing that super majority that's not healthy. We need to have more of a balance, because then they just can invoke their powers and not really have to work. And sometimes it's good that we work and we compromise and we collaborate, because I think that ultimately we are better and we come up with better solutions when we can work together and understand both sides of that issue.
I am going to make a quick mention on the field sobriety thing, though. I'll go dig it back up, and I'll send you this one as well. There's actually, when it comes to even alcohol testing, those units are not at all reliable.
No.
Okay.
There is so many studies showing how they're miscalibrated. They will often false positives the amount of times. Even the ones back at the station, the big ones, they're 100% unreliable.
Yeah, while the one bigger ones at the station are better than the handheld ones, it's still the only way to actually get it is a blood draw, or that way. But
Right.
But plenty of people get convicted on that stuff.
But yeah, and then at that point usually they're just pleading guilty to get it done and over with, instead of serving jail time or whatever for it. So
Yeah.
I mean, I see both ends of it, and I also feel that just legalizing marijuana is a mistake. They should just legalize everything, like Amsterdam, and just call it a day, because whatever, and people are going to do it regardless. Might as well get some help out there, like like you said, the way that the tax money was structured, that that could have changed a lot. Like if you would have, I can't remember which state it was, or no, it wasn't even a state. It was a city in Illinois that they said that the tax money that they were going to get from it was all going to go back into like minority businesses and stuff like that. Like if you would have actually had some sort of structure for what it was going to do. I mean, I know that there's the vague structure that they got on it now, but
Who knows how long?
Right, exactly. I mean, it might change next year.
I'll do the half step and go, everything should be at least decriminalized.
Yeah.
So that we can stop locking people up for hurting themselves, and instead get them the help they need.
Yeah.
And I had always been a supporter of that on the cannabis one. I mean, when I was on the Crystal Lake City Council, actually, we had been looking at that at one point, and I did support the decriminalization of it. And that has to do with more even the legal process, and actually the money. I mean, that comes down to a numbers game too.
Right.
I mean, really allowing for the decriminalization is a more effective way of regulating it than having it, go and be a felony or.
Right.
So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. Have you watched our interview with Jeffrey Epstein for Illinois Supreme Court?
I have not.
You should.
To do that.
Watch that one.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, we go into depth pretty good about that, about the way that the court systems are set up to kind of screw those people over, really, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and we looked at that when I was in Crystal Lake as well, and like I said, it was recommended by our police chief that there was decriminalization, and I think even at the time maybe the state's attorney was on there, and so it was.
The big thing that made me think of it was that in Illinois, so if you go to those arbitration courts for the drug things, there is nothing in the law saying that you can't then later be brought up on charges that you've gone to the arbitration court and admitted to, in order to get that so then they can then, because they can then turn around and use it against you.
Wow.
So what motivation do people have to go to those courts?
Right.
The drug court.
Right.
So,
Right.
But yeah.
Interesting. No, I will watch it because I'm not aware of that. So.
And we also have one for ranked choice voting up on there too. So.
Okay, good.
All right. Next question, unless there's something else.
No, I just wanted to add to with the taxes on that. And I wanted to point out the fact that actually the state of Illinois, one part that was part of the taxes was the residents in the state of Illinois are dedicated at 50 cents for education and outreach. Because of this new law, where a state like Colorado is actually spending $3 a person. Yeah. So, just again, the misuse of the money that's brought in, and I just wanted to point that out because I do feel like it was more of a money decision and not so much a well thought out decision.
I mean, actually, if they would have came out and said that all this tax revenue is going to pay, going straight directly to backfilling pensions first, and then after that, I would have been like, oh, we got it. Yeah. fixed it.
I mean, at least that would have been more sane. Backfill on pensions, and then all of this money goes, like half of it goes into the schools so that we can reduce the property taxes on the schools, and half of it goes into drug education.
And even if they would have had a revision on it, like saying like for like a 1 year's time, all the tax money goes into backfilling pensions and then revisit at that point.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Right.
But like I said, the way that everything's worded in that thing, it's like, where's actually all this money going? But
and that's what I just wanted to point out.
Thing.
And that's what I wanted to point out. When it goes to your the problem at the state is we're not having those discussions and we're not actually working together to find those solutions.
Ah, all right. All right, next question then. Conversely, as the original question is what's the largest obstacle, bringing it back there. Conversely, what's the largest strength the state has? And how can we use that to our advantage? That's not a question that gets asked a lot.
No, it's
Everybody's always
not.
like, what's wrong? What's wrong?
But being the vice chairman of the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, we actually do talk about this a lot because the state of Illinois does have some really good assets. And I know a lot of people might not want to turn to the city of Chicago, but, the fact that we have one of the largest urban areas in the country should really be one of our strengths. We have the largest freight system in the country, and so we have the capabilities of everything coming through our state and actually then going out into others from a transit standpoint, from a freight standpoint. So we really need infrastructure then, it should be one of our biggest focuses. We have it, we need to utilize it, and we need to really embrace that and use that as an asset, and it can be an economic driver. I mean, we at CMAP, we just recently had talked about economic industries within the Chicago region and how we can capitalize on those and bring workforce back into the state of Illinois. So we do have a lot of strengths, and we now need to be utilizing those strengths to attract people back. Instead of losing businesses, we need to actually be gaining because we have the capabilities here. We're doing it at McHenry County as well. I mean, we've had the comprehensive economic development strategy. We're revising that in the near future and trying to get people to McHenry County and play on the strengths that we have here as well. Like in the Chicago region as a whole, the healthcare industry is one that we should really be utilizing and attracting businesses, technology. We should be able to use those resources. And I just feel like there's almost this power struggle between the city, and instead of embracing what it brings and saying it can actually bring people back, it does filter on down, and maybe not so much downstate, but having a strong economy upstate actually does benefit downstate as well.
So are you trying to say that the movement to make Chicago its own state is not helpful to the conversation?
Exactly. I am not a supporter of that concept because I do think that it goes back to, just put politics aside.
Right.
We absolutely, I like the fact that I live in kind of this more suburban, rural setting, but also have access to an urban area. I mean, we utilize the museums, we utilize just the sites that are down there and the amenities that are offered, the zoos. I like that.
Yeah, we're getting, an hour drive to 3 different cities. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I am not a supporter of segregating maybe their philosophies at the political level, but really the benefits that we offer each other is much greater.
Though, I mean, we are an hour drive to 3 different cities, but is
3 large cities.
Is Rockford really a city, or is it really just a state of mind that you never really escape once you live there?
I visit Rockford many times. Rockford is a fine town.
We go there for a lot of sports.
Yes, sports.
The ice hogs.
Concerts when I was growing up. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
You just want to throw that Rockford jab in there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Because the Ice Hogs might not be the farm team of the Blackhawks anymore. That's a possibility.
I didn't hear about that. That would be sad.
That would be very sad. I think the Knights are looking at taking them. Vegas.
Oh, man, that would suck.
Yeah.
Don't they call them the Ice Swords?
I think they'd still be the Ice Hogs.
Yeah, okay. All right, next question. To add on top of that last question we had, let's talk about the internet for a minute. internet connection at this point has just become as vital to do day-to-day life as any other utility. Mm-hmm. What plans do you have or would be able to address the underserved people of McHenry County?
Well, I've supported it at the McHenry County level. I mean, when we brought fiber to McHenry County, I definitely am supportive of that project and continuing with that. It is a concern. I mean, it really is, and I think that anything I can do to support the infrastructure of bringing internet and good quality, good reliable internet to all areas, I definitely am open to the ideas of that and support the concept of it, and have tried to do that in McHenry County, and we have successfully done it to some parts. It's just finding those public-private partnerships is really a critical aspect of that, and bringing that further and really benefiting a greater population. So I think everyone should have good, reliable internet because it's a way of life now, and it's almost a necessity. And the fact that people don't, I think, when you stop and really think about that, it's pretty shocking. And so I would support anything that we could do to really provide that.
Do you want to ask her, or should I? Have you taken the survey?
I have.
All right.
I think I've taken it a couple times, actually.
The Internet Freedom for McHenry County survey?
Yeah, I got it a couple times. It went out a while ago, too. There was a different one. And then...
the survey.ifmc.co.
I think I've even promoted it before. Yeah.
So, because we're trying to get numbers. We breached the 300.
Oh, you did? I was going to say, the last I saw you were at like 290 or something like that.
We breached the 300 number.
I'll give it another push.
Yeah.
I'm going to flex my numbers because my zone's got 100 responses.
Well, I mean, Wonder Lake, that's not a huge. But yeah, so if you don't know, we do work with the Internet Freedom for McHenry County. We're both board members of them, so that's a topic near and dear to our hearts.
I know it is, and I appreciate it. And we've looked at the pockets. Unfortunately, too, the way Illinois was, we might have the same numbers that they have just over the border, but they don't address us like they do over the border. Yep. And the formula which they were using to do that was inequitable. And right. Needs to be revised the way they look at it to the reality of the situation versus kind of the generalization of specific areas. So.
Yeah.
Well, even when you look at it, and like we said, it's just as vital to the day-to-day life as any other utility. You look at somebody and you go ahead and try and apply for a job, even at like McDonald's. Walk in there and ask for an application.
Got to go online.
Yeah.
Here, go online. Here's the link.
Yeah, and if you don't have internet, you don't have that. You got to go to the library. Mm-hmm. You got to get on one of those computers. You got to get over there. So
it turns into a logistical nightmare sometimes. Yeah. So.
Awesome.
I guess you're the last question.
Am I the last question?
Yes, you are. You are the last question.
You kind of blown through these. So it's like you're just hitting them.
That's good.
With the recent changes in the law, it was made easier for people of McHenry County to dissolve townships. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's helpful or not? Now, we have to
preface this by saying, depending on how these come out, you may or may not see her face on another
episode. Start from the beginning?
Yeah, I was going to say, we just did a record with you about townships and the county, so just to put that out there and be transparent about that.
Yeah.
Well, and so I will start from the beginning. I think the legislation is poorly written from the standpoint of it's specific to McHenry County, and I am a firm believer that if you're a representative for the state of Illinois, that you need to write legislation that is in the best interest of the entire state. So my philosophy is I will represent a district, I will bring those needs of the district to the state, but then I will make legislation that is good for the entire state. So having said that, this legislation was specific to McHenry County without the collaboration of the county. So the legislation itself was not well thought out, I guess I can say. And potentially, we don't know. It may not even be well executed either, because there are a lot of questions. There's a lot of unknowns. And I think the biggest problem is that people don't really understand what it means. So I appreciate that people are trying to get information out there. I've talked to some other people, and I know there are other meetings that are occurring. I have not been involved in those meetings, but discussions being had on really what does this mean. So really dissolving, and again, it's potentially an unfunded mandate. Going back to that, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what it could mean for the county because there are so many unanswered questions. And then really people understanding what it means, those answers aren't in the legislation. You know, what's going to happen to parks? What's going to happen to social services, food pantries, senior services? What's going to happen to general assistance? What's going to happen to cemeteries? Any kind of even the roads, what's going to happen to the roads? Do we need to, it could become an unfunded mandate if we need to bring them up to the standards of the county. We don't know all these questions, so I don't really have a position on the, on if it should or shouldn't be dissolved. My position is specifically on the legislation, and it just was premature, and again, going back to not well thought out, not collaborative, and definitely not a solution. It is creating more of a problem, I think, by creating all of these questions and unknowns and kind of just a haphazard. I don't operate in headlines. I like to operate in discussions and education rather than just a headline. And that's why I had somebody say that to me the other day, I don't really see you in the paper. Well, it's
kind of a good thing, isn't it?
That's fine that you don't see me in the paper because I'm always, busy talking with people on the phone or busy reading materials, or, that's kind of how I operate. I don't operate through press releases. I don't operate through blasts on social media. I operate by engaging with individuals and understanding issues. So this is one that did not have that approach to it. So I just think it was ill thought out and ill executed.
It's hard to disagree with that. That it's a fair and even response, as far as I'm concerned. Is that we don't know what we don't know, and we can't make a decision based on what we don't know. And it is amusing when you're like, oh, I don't see you in the newspaper. And I just like to take jabs, right. And I don't see you in the newspaper like Jack Franks. Oh, anyways.
And I didn't say that.
No, you didn't say that. I did.
I do want to add to it. I'm not opposed to. I think it's. Others will then say, oh, well, she's against consolidation or she's against, cutting taxes. No, that's absolutely not. Like I mentioned before, I mean, McHenry County, we've cut 10%. Things can be cut. Things can be done properly with thought and without compromising services and without compromising the public. And another example is that our coordinated investment study that we're doing at the county, that we're finding a way to find efficiencies, we're finding a way to share services. And I sat on the municipal capacity advisory group for 2 years, and that was a regional one. It was through the Metropolitan Planning Council and the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, and it was people all throughout the Chicago region. And how can we maximize efficiencies within our municipalities? How can we maximize the services that we provide in the most efficient way? And so what we found out was it wasn't through these words like consolidation or dissolution. It was actually through shared services. And how can we work together? How can we work together to find where, we can benefit each other and do so in a cost-effective manner? That's where the focus needs to be, and that's what we are doing that at McHenry County, and that's why it was almost a little. The legislation was easy to do, some of the legislation they were putting forth, because we're already being responsible. We already were having mechanisms in place to start saving and start being efficient. So now when you say, oh, well, I'm writing legislation forcing McHenry County to do something, well, we're already doing a lot of it. So they're going to then take credit for, see, I told you it could be done. Well, no, we were already doing it. We didn't need the state to tell us to do it. We were already doing it.
We were doing this for 10 years, but now you pass a law, and then all of a sudden...
You'll get the credit for it. Right. And that's not this case. I mean, McHenry County has been a leader in finding government efficiencies and a leader in the state. and it will be acknowledged this summer because this program will come to fruition. And people will see that we can find efficiencies, we can do shared services. I think what might happen with some municipalities will be a natural progression of when they find these shared services and these efficiencies, they'll eventually become paper communities. And that's when we'll really start seeing the necessity or the need, or the potential to dissolve. Once there's a paper community, every service is already handled under a different area, and that's fine, and that's great. Then you can start removing that. The one with townships that I always give is, coterminous townships were no-brainers.
Yeah.
I mean, that one, fine. You have the same layer right there, just eliminate them. The legislation, though, does not allow you to create a coterminous township. And there were 8 in the state of Illinois, of which a few have already dissolved that layer of government. And it works because the municipality just takes over what they've kind of already been doing. And now that we know the general assistance piece doesn't need to be taken care of, that was always the kind of unknown.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't even need to be taken care of, then we don't even need to worry about that one. But if we could create a township that was coterminous, then we could start eliminating that way as well and kind of create that paper community. But we can't, because you can't create a new unit of government in the state of Illinois. So those solutions, there's a lot of limitations and legislation that and actually could be effective that could actually start removing layers of government, but people don't really understand it's a really complex issue, and people just want to dictate, the legislature in particular wants to dictate solutions and then have local government respond. Again, that's where it's really important to have that working relationship with your local units of government. I can't say, I am a firm believer in local control and understanding the needs of the community. And we needed to do that in this case, and it wasn't done.
I'm a big fan of small government, and by small government, I mean small units of government without a lot of power under their belt. And it seems to me that the township elimination procedure is just consolidating power at one larger unit of government. And I think that we've got a lot of, when you have a lot of those smaller units of government, it acts as a safeguard because you can't just get one person that sits in that seat and has all that power under their thumb.
And that's an interesting point, and you have me thinking about the effects that this might have too, and it will continue to evolve. And from the standpoint of now, the county board's going to control. Potentially if this happens, the county board will be controlling McHenry Township as it formerly would have been, the geographic area of the residents that currently live in McHenry Township. And I live in Crystal Lake. I don't have that in-depth knowledge of McHenry County or McHenry Township as those that live in McHenry Township do. And the fact that the board size is going to be reduced in the near future, you'll have even fewer people with that.
Less people represented.
The institutional knowledge because of that. So it's just popped in my head as you're talking about that. It would be another consideration that people need to think about is you're going to be getting fewer and fewer people actually understanding that very specific geographic region. And it's fine if people don't want that. I mean, it's fine. People just need to understand what it is that they're making those decisions on.
All right. That was our last question. Do you got anything else you want to throw in? Any follow-ups on anything there, Brett?
No, I think we did the follow-ups pretty well on each one. So.
All right. I don't really have anything else. I want to kind of sneak in there at the end. Do you have any last words now that you've got the mic and the end of it? Anything you want to drive home or reach out to those? The last time we did one of these candidate interviews for you, you far exceeded anybody else in viewers. Like you 100% pushed that out to the limit, and you were the most viewed. So whatever you're doing to get that viewership, do it again, and here's your chance to talk directly into the camera.
Okay,
do it.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate it. Yeah, I always really appreciate you guys having me here and providing this information. It's really hard to get that platform of information out. I wanted to just get across, I really am about representing people. and communities and are supporting the needs of those communities. And we need good, effective representation that will advocate for our communities and for our residents. And I am approachable. I am collaborative. I'm an engineer by degree, and so my brain is just set to be a problem solver, and I will do just that. And I am compassionate, and I really take this seriously and want to provide good, effective leadership. So I would appreciate the support in getting me to Springfield, and I will bring all of these ideas and this passion down there with me.
Awesome. Again, this is Don't Panic McHenry County. I'm Mike Toller.
I'm Brett Peter.
And this is Carolyn Schofield, represented in the primary race for the representative of the 66th district on the Republican side. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.